I mean,
Yeah.
we're not at this place where we're incredibly inclusive. I mean,
Right. Right. Right.
there's those memes that are like, here's what inclusion is. Here's having a seat at the table, being asked to dance, and dancing like nobody is looking. Like the different versions of what true
Right.
inclusion means. And we're starting to get seats at the table, and then the work is in being heard and listened and actually
Right.
included now, right? So I think an open dialogue and an open conversation is the way to do all of those things. And social media allows people to start listening a bit more and learning and following people who are not like them. And hopefully everybody's open to following one person who isn't exactly like them and has different
Right.
interests, and is has sensory things that are different than their own.
All right. Welcome everybody back to the Everybody Has a Podcast. Today we are talking with Amy Wise, Special Olympics. Amy, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you inviting me to be here today.
No, absolutely. So, Amy, you and I go back a ways. I think when
I
I
do.
got in Orlando in about 2014. You were working at the time for like a sports based gaming not podcast, a startup.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other through that. And but I've been watching the kind of what you're doing now. Is like I saw something not too long ago, and I'm sorry to like put you on the spot and embarrass you right away.
I
About two or
appreciate
three
it.
days ago, somebody posted and they posted a video of you, of how kind you were on LinkedIn, and you shared the video, and that was such a great I looked at it as that you could tell that you're doing what you love to do right now. Almost, I don't want to get all cheesy and say it was a calling or anything like that. But talk to me a little bit about just the transition from the gaming side and all that to what you're doing now. And I imagine not, and this is not throwing shade at anything, but I imagine it's a different feel right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, the opportunity to work for Special Olympics, it was one of those moments where it was just like this incredible opportunity to do something that took everything else that I had done in my career and
Hmm.
kind of pulled it all together, right? So I was in sports for quite a while, and then I went over and I was on sort of the tech side, and worked out
Right.
quite a bit with a number of I was at college for a while, so in both PR and marketing and development. So bringing that all together to do that for such an amazing movement has been absolutely life changing. Yes, yeah, a calling. It's been a blessing, is what it has been.
Well, tell me about what happened the other day. I mean, you have to. I can't imagine. And I promise I'm not going this round on purpose. But the emotional side of just seeing, not just are you doing what you love to do, but you also, when you are validated by this kind of audience, the whole community is very close knit, and they can detect an outsider when they, I mean. But what was that like to kind of just get that reception to what you do? And it really wasn't doing nothing more than what you do every day.
Yeah, and I think the one you're referring to is it was from the 2022 USA Games, and it was
Hmm.
an athlete family. It was a parent who I had stopped them because I follow their daughter and recognized that it was their daughter. She's actually, I follow her on LinkedIn, and they anyway. So I stopped and I started chatting with them, and then they realized who I was and the role that I have within the movement, and it was just a really pure, beautiful moment. I believe that's the one that you're talking about. Another one though
Yeah.
that I know you've pointed out before was I posted from our recent World Games, which was in Berlin, and that was actually of a family member watching it. We never see the athlete. All you see is the emotion of the family
Hmm.
member watching their athlete compete, and just the way that they are sort of processing everything and the joy that they have in the moment, and the feeling
Yeah.
that they're sharing. And for me, that really hits me that Special Olympics isn't just for athletes. There's a place for all of us in the
Yeah.
movement. It's life changing for so many people.
And I think there over the years, and I mean I'm of a certain age, right? And it's um, it we are in a different era now when it comes to social media, when it comes to being able to share these things. You get I hope anyway a bigger percentage of the population gets a better understanding of not just the challenges they have to go through, but also how similar they are, right? They're out there competing. They're out there trying to win. We can all identify with that. I know that like I don't mean to kind of make any sort of statement on society or whatever, but I do believe that as the more visibility you have on this kind of thing, the more it makes it just. I'm trying to use the right adjective here, but it makes it more. You can understand a little more the
Well,
experience.
the world is better because people are different from each other, right? I mean, that
Right.
is what makes the world incredible. And so, I love the neurodiverse community and the viewpoints and the experiences that everybody brings to the table. It is really incredible to get to sit and to work with our athletes and to get to be involved in our movement. And sports has always been for me in my lifetime something that has mattered.
Right.
I was on sports business side for a long time. Have always enjoyed that side of my career, and to have watched many professional athletes and through their careers, but to get to watch that through our athletes' eyes is incredible because it's teamwork and it's
Hmm.
leadership and it's health and it is so much. Sports is not just about winning or losing. It is about the lessons you learn. It's about your
Right.
takeaways. It's about what it does to your mind and your body and to your community. It's it. I there's I, biggest fan of sports. Um,
Right. Yeah, and I think you put it the best way there. It's about teamwork. It's about learning the skills of sports, and it's about living a life like others. Right. I do some work with a Beacon College out in Leesburg, which is
I
focused on
love Beacon College.
neurodiverse
Yeah,
population. And one of the things a story that I did was about how they have a group out there that did like a lightsaber club where they would just be out there, and swinging lightsabers. They're foam, obviously. Don't no one wants a no one wants lasers thrown at each other, um, but it's I think it opened my eyes, right? And don't get me wrong, I for a very long time I believed very strongly that everyone should have their chance, everyone has a voice, right? As a writer, obviously, but to see it in person, it really tugs at the heart a little bit when you see that people who for so long, a population that for so long, whether you like it or not, it was demonized, right? Or it was just made to think, or but lately I think there's a better understanding of kind of that population.
I think the IDD community and is much broader than I think most people realize, and
Right.
there is with regards to Beacon College, and of course that I don't work for or with Beacon
Yeah.
College right now, but as I understand it, it's ADD and ADHD, and it's that type of neurodiversity, and that is all of us. And again, what makes
Right.
what
Right.
makes the world amazing is that people have these unique hobbies and these hyper focus and these and they're excellent in one areas. When you look at
Right.
some of our greatest entrepreneurs and our engineers and our creative people, that's a lot of that is the neurodiverse community. So
Hmm.
our athletes are some of the most creative. It's one of the most creative communities I've been in. I mean, incredible musicians,
Hmm.
incredible artists, not just great, wonderful athletes.
Yeah, why do you think we are at such a point now? Like I think I'll offer my thing. It's just there's a lot of factors coming together, and then the environment is just right for it to be have more of an awareness. But why do you think that this kind of thing, this kind of discussion has been happening a lot more for this awareness and really understanding. Or let me ask you also. I mean, do you think there should be more? Or are we at a point now where we're in a good point? You know what I mean?
There should always be more. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not at this place where we're incredibly inclusive. I mean,
Right. Right. Right.
there's those memes that are like, here's what inclusion is, here's having a seat at the table, being asked to dance and dancing like nobody is looking, like the different versions of what true
Right.
inclusion means. And, you know, we we're starting to get seats at the table, and then the work is in being heard and listened and actually
Right.
included now, right? So I think an open dialogue and an open conversation is the way to do all of those things. And social media allows people to start listening a bit more and learning and following people who are not like them. And hopefully everybody's open to following one person who isn't exactly like them and has different
Right.
interests and is has sensory things that are different than their own. And I just there's so much to learn. I think social media is exposing people to new ideas.
It's got to be like pretty easy to find inspiring stories, but how do you kind of differentiate between the one that you really want to share and the one that's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to. It's hard to pick your favorite, you know?
No, that's a great question, and it's one that
Yeah.
we talk a lot about right now internally because we've got almost 4 million athletes and unified partners across the globe. So that's four
Right.
million stories to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 227 programs. That's like a state or a country where we've got a Special Olympics program, and so.
Mhm.
What we're finding is that the all the stories are there. It is helping to help our regional and our program leads to sort of spot the story and
Right.
then capture it and giving them the right resources to do so. Some of our programs are run entirely by volunteers and they have very, very small
Right.
budgets. So, you know, I- budget and resources is always one of the things that we struggle with because we're still behind where we were pre-COVID.
Hmm.
I say we lost, 2 billion athletes. Lost is the wrong word. What happened was,
Right. Right.
you
Right.
lose a venue or a coach, or somebody steps out of it for a while, and you've got to sort of organize everybody to get them back so that they're practicing and playing games and engaging with us again. And you know we're not all of our locations are quite as well equipped as the US
Yeah.
with regards to Special Olympics. I challenge anybody who's watching, please come out and come out
Huh.
to a games, come out to a program's games. They've got them twice a year, right?
Yeah.
The games where they're coming from all over in the U.S., the state, and come and volunteer. Once
Right.
you experience it, it is a part of who you are. It will touch you that much because the victories are more emotional, the teamwork is so much more evident. It is just an incredible experience.
I think, yeah, I think that's and I think here in Orlando, Central Florida, this is hopefully going to be distributed everywhere. But here in our little region, there seems to be a pretty good um, ecosystem, right?
Florida,
Of
Florida has a wonderful Special Olympics program. They sure do.
So, just so you know, about 2 minutes ago, you said that's a good question. I can't wait to cut like 17 people saying that. It's gonna be the funniest video I've ever. Everyone saying that's a good question.
Yeah, that
That'll be on my that'll be my highlight reel.
that's exactly. That's your marketing. That's your video. That's
That's
your commercial.
that's right. That's right. Talk to me a little bit about just the path that got you to where you are. Right. I mean, you are a sports fan, right? But not necessarily.
Yeah.
You told me not necessarily like a diehard, or you just like to see the competition. What is it? Tell me a little more about that because as I've been mentioning here, we do have a questionnaire beforehand. I don't just pull this stuff out of the air. Um, but talk a little bit about that, just that side of it.
Sure thing. So, I actually went to college for journalism. And so
Mm.
my first job out of school was with a gambling magazine in New York City. And I I was fairly miserable. I'd write like articles about like how to win at blackjack, and I mean, fun,
Yeah.
but not what I wanted to be doing, right? And a friend of mine in college, she had been in the sports track, and so I was like, I love hockey. I'm going to go work in hockey. So went
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
PR in a minor
Okay.
league team, and that's how my sort of sports career started. And I really, what I love the excitement of the game. I like the games. I love the energy, but I really loved the business side of it. I
Okay.
loved engaging with the media, the communications, the marketing, and also the business development, sort of the win-win relationships and partnerships. I
Right.
love
Right.
how sports teams run and work. Um, and everything else is really the icing to me,
Well,
right?
let me ask you, was it minor league hockey or was it semi-pro hockey? Was it like
Minor
NHL
league.
minor league?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
started in the AHL, so the American
Okay.
Hockey League. I was with a
Yeah.
team in New Haven called the Beast of New Haven. Nobody remembers the Beast of New Haven except for maybe the people in New Haven. And then I was at Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and I was in the Pittsburgh Penguins system with their AHL
Okay.
team, which is the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And then I moved down to Florida, worked for the Tampa Bay Lightning in the NHL, and I was there when we won our first Stanley Cup. So hockey was a big part of the beginning of my career.
Like, was that just coincidence, or were you ever a hockey fan, or was it just like, here's your friend who has this position in this hockey?
I loved hockey. When growing up, I wasn't the hugest hockey fan, but in
Sure.
college, I became a big hockey fan. I just enjoyed the games. I thought they were a lot of fun. So that was kind of me, thinking I don't like what I'm doing. This looks like fun. My friend is making a career out of this. Let's give it a shot. And boy, it's really worked out for me. That
Well,
said, you won't find me following. If you were asked me what's happening I mean, well, right now, but if you were to ask me about, maybe like in November, how a team is doing, I wouldn't necessarily be able to tell
right,
you. And
right,
I probably didn't see the
right.
game the night before.
Right. I think it's funny because what you just said is like so true to the human experience, and that is like you just get to places that you don't know you were going to go. And I think like again, I don't harp, I promise I don't harp on this every day, but I've mentioned now twice my age, right? When you're 47, like you realize and you've experienced some things, you realize that things just happen, right? Pardon me,
Yep.
things don't just happen. Things they are aligned for you. You make it
That.
work out whether you like it or not, right? Because you have to, right? And I think I love that that real. It's a real. I like the organized randomness of life. Does that make sense?
I do too. I
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think I find it fascinating that everything, like you said, the alignment, like, somebody that I had engaged with 20 years ago will sort of pop back into your life again, and it kind of things make sense. I'm getting older and experiencing more and more of that, where I just it's like a great book where sort of the teasers early
Oh
on,
yeah.
like they show up again later on in the later
Right.
chapters.
Right.
I feel like that's happening in real life.
Way back when I was a young buck in my early 20s, I was working at a you said a blue collar, full time, whatever. That was, right. I wasn't looking at writing at all. And then this opportunity came up. It was the very early days of the internet. I'm talking like late '90s, and there was this website that said, you can write for us if you want. You're not going to get paid, of course. I'm like, yeah, okay, screw it. It's about sports, great. So I started writing, and that was like years before I knew, or before I ended up running into journalism somewhere. And it was
Yeah.
so. I mean, that whole thing just. I mean, I think the reason that I think, at least, and let me just say that this is for me anyway. At this age, the reason I think things happen and life's just going to figure itself out is because it has several times in my life, just quote unquote figured itself out. And that's not to minimize my effort or to say it's all random, but I mean, again, anything else comes up, you're gonna handle it because you have to.
That's right, right? One foot in front of the other. I always say that's how you climb a mountain, right? And
Yeah, and I think not to like back into this a little bit, but you look at some of the athletes that you have, And I think when it comes to their parents and their family, right, they're presented with what they're presented, and they have to figure it out. And I think that's, and again, I don't mean to like objectify what's going on, but like I think that is a challenge that they have, that they figure it out.
That I mean, that's right. Our families are incredible, and of course, not all of our athletes are in situations where they've got incredible, well, families that are
Yeah,
incredibly supportive. But some of them, don't have. They might have caregivers, or they might be in different situations. But we've got a lot of engaged families, and that's really incredible because as a parent myself, the when your child is developing and you're trying to figure out where your resources are and where your
yeah,
community is going to be and how you're going to best help your child. It's wonderful to think that there are organizations like ours and like some of the other ones that I've leaned into over the years as a parent, that sort of are there to help and to be
yeah.
a community.
Tell me a little bit about Dayton, Ohio. How
Yes, that's where I grew up. I know that
how long
place.
were you how long were you there? How long were you there? So how was that growing up out there?
The nicest people are in Ohio, I
Yeah.
think. I think everybody, every time that I would go back and visit, I would always like, I don't know, be driving out of the airport or something, and everybody would say thank you and, like let you get over. And, anyways, incredible, nicest people from Ohio. I grew up in Dayton. I was there for 18 years, and then had sort of a year where I found myself and lived down in Florida with a group of friends, and then came back and went to uh, college at Ohio University. So I was on the sort of the other side of Ohio for a bit, and then didn't go back because the career took me all these other places. But I growing up in Ohio was great. Dayton was a great place to grow up, I thought.
When
My
you say
Yes.
I'm sorry, I apologize, but when you say you came down to Florida for a year, whereabouts?
Oh, Clearwater.
Okay.
Clearwater. I refer to that sort of as, I don't know, my hippie stage where we did like make jewelry and we were
Right, right, right.
so we don't need to spend too much time on that period of my life.
Right, right. Well, tell me more about just Dayton, right? I've never been to Ohio. I think I would like. Actually, I think it was once to Cincinnati, but I think it was just more a 1 day stop. But growing up, kind of what did you get into? What did you enjoy doing? I mean, what formed kind of what from your childhood kind of brought you to where you are now when it comes to your personality and your interests?
My experience was probably different than most people. Dayton was wonderful, of course, but my father was an anchorman, so he was on TV,
Right.
and so Dayton is a small market. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
fairly big market. It's a small town, so everybody knows kind of the folks who are on TV are very well known,
Right.
and
Local celebrities.
local celebrities. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and that's a big important market for that station, too. For there was a CBS affiliate, so
Mm.
I grew up with my father on TV, and it was during the '80s and the '90s when local TV was very, very, very important. So
Yeah.
different experience when you've got a sort of local celebrity parent. Everybody kind of
It's funny.
expects
It's
something.
funny. It's funny because even decades later, you hesitate to call him a local celebrity. He was just dead. But but I feel
Well,
like, go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, and it was little things like there'd be a out of home, a billboard, and there would be my father, and I'd be driving with my friends, and or a teacher. I remember teachers telling me they expected so much out of me because of who I was, or my dad would pop in to show up at my school like parents do to support, and the kids would line up to get an autograph because they just didn't know better.
Right.
Um, so that was an interesting sort of way to be raised. The great thing about it is that my parents were loving and supportive and incredible family. I'm incredibly
Yeah.
lucky to come from a family like that. But the thing that I carried with me was he loved his job,
Mm.
loved his job. He did his job for the joy of the job right? He got to travel, he got to tell interesting stories, he got to meet interesting people. He made a career look like fun, and I my
Yeah.
expectation has always been that I will do something that I will enjoy. And so, I've shifted around a little bit through my career because when I'm unhappy, I'm just not as efficient, and I
Right.
that philosophy has led me in some incredible directions. So that, and the other piece I carried from my youth was, I was a little bit of an alien growing up. I did not excel in school. My processing is slightly different. My focus, my ability to hyper focus is slightly different. So I always felt like an alien. I always felt a little bit like an outsider. And so now that I do what I do, I feel like I have a lot of connection, a lot of kinship with many of our athletes.
How do you kind of move past adversity, right? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that that does provide value to anybody who might see this, because there is almost like a in 2024 anyway. It's almost like there's a celebration of failure a little more, when you have like a lot of startup young companies, young people are like, screw it, I'm going to try this. It didn't work. Okay, what's next? There's just a different vibe toward, I'll call it failure, but I'd say like first attempts or whatever. How do you deal with kind of that disappointment? Maybe is a better word for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always dealt with disappointment in just getting up the next day.
Right.
And like we said earlier, putting one foot in front of the other. I think people building networks is very important, and staying in touch with people. And if you've got a good network, you have got people that you can lean on either for, mentorship or advice, or to sort of help you to find your next opportunity. I really admire this generation, the
Right. Same.
generation Z, even, and A, because I've got one of each at my house right now. And
I'm
my
not sure which
kids,
generation is which anymore. I don't even
I know, it's a little
know.
confusing. I mean,
I think X, but I'm not sure.
yeah, the lingo is something, but their expectations and their willingness to be more inclusive is incredible.
Yeah.
Their expectations for themselves and for who they want to be is really interesting. I people I hear sometimes people are like, oh, the generation, what are they gonna this we're gonna fail. I think they're incredible. I think they're the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and I think they're the ones who are going to figure out how to create some incredible new, companies, and
Right.
they're going to experiment and they're going to invent new things. It's just they're interesting. I love the new generations.
I think people that, and this is me kind of bragging a little bit on my people, my age people. One thing that I think that benefits the way I was raised anyway is I spent a lot of years, I'd say, and then to put a number, I'd say 20 some odd years, if not 15 to 20, not really having the technology we have today, right? Like the invention of the internet was like a boom, like a delineation point when it comes to just being tech savvy or tech knowledgeable, right? So I remember how it was before the internet, and so I appreciate a lot about like what we are now as far as technology goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, today it's way past the internet. There's so much other things going on now. I'm fortunate to be a tech reporter to kind of be able to follow along, but to me, it's like I keep saying some people like doom saying a lot of things that younger people are launching, right? Or like concepts that younger people are championing, and I'm like, you know what? It's their turn.
Yeah.
They've lived and been in a world where their whole life they've been tech connected. So the things that are coming out of their heads are going to be so much deeper than anything that can come out of my head, because
Oh,
to them it's ingrained. It's
yep.
imprinted in their head. So that's why I'm a big advocate of teaching STEM at like kindergarten, even if not before, because that is the world they're going to grow up in. So when I hear like I do hear people of my generation and older, some by the way, some of them. I'm not saying it's a blanket coverage for anything, but I try to remind them like it's their world now. They're
Yeah.
gonna build, they're gonna make mistakes, but they're also gonna come up with innovations that you and I have not even thought about.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, being the old guy out on the lawn yelling "kids,"
Right, right,
like
right,
that's
right,
nobody should be that person, right? Like they like be especially when it comes to the innovations around technology and
right.
the way people can monetize things now and being and
Yeah.
allowing them to monetize the way that things can be monetized now. I mean, let them learn these things. They don't have to do things the way that we've always done them because that's not the way it's going to be in the future.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. Let me go one more direction before we go.
Okay.
This is called the Everybody Has a podcast for a reason. What is a podcast that you're watching or you're listening to? Um, I mean, do you watch them or do you listen? Right? And you mentioned Inclusion Revolution Radio. Tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that podcast. Well, my big thing is going to be trying to share, trying to get the audiences up when it comes to these kind of things. So, tell me a little
I
bit
love that.
about that podcast and why it resonates with you.
Yeah, so Inclusion Revolution Radio is the Special Olympics podcast. It is hosted by one of our athletes, Novi Craven, and she's been doing it for a while
Mm,
now. She's good interviewer. We've had a number of ambassadors and celebrities and people who are involved with the movement and other athletes who've been on the podcast in the past. She recently had Tony Snell on there.
mm,
Tony's an NBA player who
oh,
his son was diagnosed is autistic, and then he recognized some of this in himself and
mm,
realized, as I mentioned back when maybe Tony was young, when I was young, people didn't get diagnosed the way that they
oh
do
yeah.
now. He recognized some of his son in himself and went and got his own diagnosis. So really interesting interviews around the disability and inclusion space.
Well, there was. I mean, when you talk about Tony, there was a stigma back then. I think that was the word I was looking for earlier, right? That I
Yeah,
think the stigma has, as while it would be foolish to say it's disappeared, I would say there's more. There's more. A lot of it. I mean, frankly, as a sports fan, a lot of it is driven by a lot of athletes kind of accepting it, right? And I say that I hate using the word accepting because I mean it's been there whether they like it or not. But there's a lot more talk about, a lot more awareness. You mentioned Tony. Um, sometimes sadly you have to experience something before you can understand it. Um,
that
yeah, and I think that to me is something that's universal too, right? That's universal when it comes to just general attitude. So the podcast, when I hear you explain that podcast, like the first thought to me is that it's another example of just content being universal. Just
yeah.
being able to produce is a big skill that you want to develop, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is. Have you met? Have you? You said you have met her, correct?
Novi? Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no, yeah.
What is your as you having like a media background, marketing background? I mean, do you kind of offer your tips if she needs it, or if she asks for it?
Oh, that's so nice of you to ask, but man, there are so many people on our team and our staff who are
Right.
better at those types of things than I am, and she gets to engage with them. So, she's an incredible athlete ambassador for Special Olympics, and asks again great questions. She loves WWE. Anytime you get her talking about WWE, she's been on an advertisement for United Airlines before.
Mm,
So I think that's one thing with what we do is that again I mentioned it's not just sports but like athlete
right.
leadership and empowerment and giving people opportunities that they maybe wouldn't have had if they hadn't been involved with Special Olympics. This is one of those situations.
It's funny because as a child, I used to play sports, and I think a lot of the things that you learn in life do come from sports. So I really admire what you're doing. I admire the work that you guys are putting into kind of making sports as inclusive as they should be. And so, Amy, thank you so much for joining me today. And I I,
Absolutely.
I am test I'm I won't say I'm testing. I'll say I stumbled upon a tagline and I want you to, in real time, to assess it as we're
Okay,
talking.
let's go.
This might ruin the whole podcast if you don't do it the right way, but no pressure. But um, but okay, so the tagline is chat, listen, laugh, right? And it's like, thank you for joining me on Everybody Has a Podcast, where we chat, you listen, and hopefully we all laugh.
I love it.
Not bad, not bad. Okay.
I think it's
Uh,
wonderful. Yes. Well, laughter is the thing we can all can connect with, right?
100%. Amy, thanks again so much, and I appreciate you, and you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. So good to see you again. I'll look forward to the next time we get to hang out, maybe lunch sometime.
Sound good. Sound good.
All
Thank you so
right.
much.
Bye.